Hi there, and welcome to the Salt and Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today I'm going to go over the different kinds of accessories that you can get for the Ninja Foodie. I'm going to talk about the ones that I like and use the most in my recipes, and also show you how to configure the accessories to fit the most food in the Ninja Foodie when you're doing pot and pot cooking. So the first thing we want to talk about is the accessories that come with the Ninja Foodie, and one of them is the basket. Now this inner rack here that I have in there does not come with a Ninja Foodie. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But this is the basket, and it is great for air frying. In fact, for all the tender crisp lid options, but it's also great for pressure cooking. You could put your meat and vegetables in here in the basket, put it in the Ninja Foodie, and these little legs will raise it above the water line when you're going under pressure. So that works great. And these legs are important definitely when you're using the air crisper function, the tender crisp lid function, because they allow for airflow to go underneath. So you want to keep the legs on when you're doing any kind of air frying, baking, roasting, or broiling. And the legs come off fairly easily. In case you don't know that, you just push on two adjacent legs and they will pop right off. And that makes it easy for cleaning and soaking the pot and getting in all the crevices. A toothbrush works really great for cleaning these little legs as well. That's usually what I do. If I have some kind of grease or something coated on there, I'll just take a toothbrush, and not the one I use, obviously, but a toothbrush that I have just for cleaning the foodie, and just clean it up. So the basket is a great option to use, and I use it a lot, but it does limit you because you can't really do a lot of layered cooking with what comes with the Foodie. But I'm going to show you that in just a second about some ways that we can layer food using some other accessories. But first, before we get into that, I just wanted to show you a trick. This is not my invention. This has been going around for a while. I take no credit for figuring this out at all, but it is kind of cool, and I wanted to show you guys. You can use your rack that comes with the Ninja Foodie to remove the basket. So there are these foldable legs, and there's these two brackets that kind of sit flush against the basket when you put it in the high position. What you want to do is open them all the way so that the legs are parallel to the actual rack, the flat part of the rack, and then these little things are sticking up straight. And so then you go in and just set it right on top where your handles are in your basket and move the legs towards you. Now, they're not going to go all the way in, but you just move them and pick it up, and you can pick your basket up and get it out of the Ninja Foodie. Now, I usually don't do that, usually because I don't have the rack out. I usually just use my mitts, but it is handy, definitely, for taking things in and out of the Ninja Foodie using the rack and when you're cooking with the basket. All right, so let me get into a few things you can do with the basket to layer your cooking. One is if you bought your Ninja Foodie from Sam's Club, and maybe a few other places, I'm not positive about that, or if you have the 8-quart, I think the 8-quart came with this as well. So this is another rack. You can purchase it from I think it's on Amazon, but it's definitely on the Ninja website. And it is a rack that fits inside of the basket to give a second layer. So this would be great if you were going under pressure and you wanted to have your vegetables on top and your meat on the bottom. You could do it that way. This would also be great if you wanted to bake, roast, air fry, whatever, 2 different layers of food. Just keep in mind that when you layer food, it will inhibit some of the airflow, some of the heat, so some of the cooking. So I recommend alternating. So if you were going to do 4 burgers with this, I would do one here, and then in the bottom, one over here and one over here, and that would work fine. Now, I find that I don't use this rack very much, even though it did come with one of the Foodies that I purchased from Sam's. I don't use it that much because these handles get in the way. I'm going to show that to you in a little bit when we get into the pots and pans that I use. So I don't use this a lot. Somebody in my Ninja Foodie 101 group bought this rack, and I just jumped right on it, and I got it immediately because I thought it was so cool. There are some downsides to it, and I will go over those as well. But this one has grates. It's a canning rack, basically. It has a grid type of surface versus just straight lines. So that helps if you're cooking with smaller foods, they won't drop through. So it does fit in the basket perfectly. This is a 7.9 diameter with 2-inch legs. And you need to get that size, 2 inches, give you enough clearance to put something in the bottom here. And you want to get the 7.9 diameter because that fits perfectly in this basket. If you get anything smaller, you're kind of defeating the purpose because the idea is to get more surface area when we are cooking in the Ninja Foodi. So the other thing that happens is these little legs, they tend to, sometimes if you don't have them positioned right, they will poke through some of the holes in the bottom. But there is a trick to fix that, and I'm gonna show that to you in just 1 second. So if you belong to any Facebook groups for the Ninja Foodi, you have probably seen these little guys. These are oven rack guards that you can purchase, and people are using them to put on their racks to protect from scratching the bottom so that, there's just a little buffer there. And you can cut them to any length. They come in large lengths and you can cut them to fit. So actually, they also work to help pick up foods or pick up the rack when it's hot, but they don't work very well for air frying or the tender crisp lid. They work really well for pressure cooking because they don't get that hot, so they cool down immediately. But I don't really use them. I just find them a little cumbersome to take on and off and another thing to clean. So I don't use them that often. That's why you don't see them in my videos. But I cut some down to size, and I'm going to show you what I do here is put them on this little leg here, and that will prevent it from going through those holes. So that's the way you combat that, because you do get a lot more surface area on this rack. So I do like this better than the one that you can get through Ninja, but there is one other downfall, and that is that it doesn't have any handles. So when you have layered cooking and maybe you need to flip something on the bottom, it can be a little bit difficult to get out. So just keep that in mind. This one has handles, less surface area. This one doesn't, more surface area. So you kind of choose which one you would prefer if you were going to get either one. What I found to get the rack out is to lift it up with a fork. That works really, really well, and it's easy to do. So usually what I do is I'll put something on top here that is in another pan so that I could pick that pan up and then quickly get this out. So I would put chicken on the bottom and maybe some vegetables in another pan on top, and then pick that pan off, flip your chicken, and it's not that hard. But I just want to, make sure that you're aware of all the pros and cons of everything that I'm showing you today. All right, so that's about it with the basket and layering food in the basket. So I'm gonna move on to the rack a little bit, and then we're gonna get into some really, really cool configurations for pot and pot cooking using the rack and just a few different types of pans. So the rack comes with a Ninja Foodi, and it has 2 positions, low position and high position. So the high position is great when you want to have something that has a larger volume in the bottom and you still want to cook something on top. So you can put it in, put whatever food that you need to in the bottom, then you could lay something on top and cook it as well. And this is pressure cooking or tender crisp lid cooking, either one. And then you could also turn it to the lower position. So if you just wanted to raise your food above the water, the liquid that we need to go under pressure, you could do that as well by using it in the low position. But then you don't have a whole lot of options for stacking because you could stack 2 pans on top of each other, and I do that sometimes, but very rarely. Usually what I do is use it in this position, and I'm going to show you how to get 3 layers of cooking in the Ninja Foodi. All right, so if you've watched any of my videos or followed any of my recipes online, you're going to know that I am in love with the Fat Daddy-O pans. They are wonderful quality, and they come in so many different sizes. The 2 different sizes that I recommend all the time are the 8-inch by 2-inch, so the 2-inch depth and 8-inch diameter. And then I also love the 6 by 2. So I recommend those all the time. And the reason I do that is because I think they give you the most versatility when you're doing pot and pot cooking in the Ninja Foodi. And I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can configure it using the rack to get a couple of layers up to 3, as many as I've been able to figure out how to do, 3 layers of food in the Ninja Foodi. So what you can do is with the 8-inch or the 6-inch, this will work with both, but you can't use 2 8-inch pans. It's only gonna work with an 8-inch and a 6-inch, or 2 6-inch, and it won't even work with the 7-inch. You could put the 7-inch on the bottom, but the 7-inch will not fit on the top because of these little things right here. So what I do is put the pan underneath. Now keep in mind when you're doing pressure cooking, and this is specifically really for pressure cooking. This does not work with air frying because the pan on top is gonna sit a little too high for you to lower the lid. So this is specifically with pressure cooking. So what I do is I think about what I'm gonna cook, and I know I need thin liquid to go under pressure, but we don't always wanna cook all of our foods in thin liquid. You don't wanna dilute the flavors with a lot of liquid sometimes. So I'll pick whichever ingredient that I'm gonna cook that won't matter if it's in the bottom with some of the thin liquid that we need to come up to pressure. And then things like, let's say I wanted to cook a seasoned chicken breast and I wanted to throw in lemon and thyme and rosemary and different seasonings, and I wanted to put it in a pan, and maybe I just wanted a little olive oil. I didn't want a lot of liquid, but I wanted to pressure cook it. Well, then I would do it this way. So you would take some sort of a band like this that is safe for food. This is a graffiti. I think I'm saying it correctly. I'm not sure. But this is a band, and they come in various different sizes, and I got them on Amazon. They are in my Amazon store. In fact, everything I'm going to show you today is either on my Pampered Chef website or in my Amazon store. So they come in various sizes, and you just pick the size you want to use. I think I'm going to use this green one. And you slip it, let me do it from the front so you can see. You slip it over the leg here and up over the rack, and then put it under the pan and kind of pull it back as you get it under the pan and spread it out. There's actually a place that I like to try to keep on top because that's like the handle area for me, but it doesn't really matter. So then I just kind of spread it out a little bit just so it's balanced there. And now you have another layer of cooking. So you could put something, not a really, tall item, but something on the bottom here in the pot, like maybe some sliced potatoes with some broth or water that you wanted to cook. You could put another food component, another dinner component here, and then you could put another dinner component here. Now you have to keep in mind that the cook times need to be similar, and I think I'll get into that in another video because that's super important, and there's a lot of ways that you can change the size of your food to kind of force it to cook all at the same time. But that's a whole nother topic, and I will get into that in another video. So here we go. So you can put it in the pot just like this. Now you might notice that this pan is sitting a little bit above the rim. That is fine. It will work under pressure. It doesn't work with the lid down. That's why I said this is specifically for pressure cooking. So what I do when I'm doing this kind of a configuration is I usually move this pan towards the front of the Ninja Foodi to allow more room in the back so that we know we're not going to impede any of the steam coming up and releasing, all the safety mechanisms that are built into the Ninja Foodi. We don't want to impede those. So you could put it in and then put your lid on. And because the lid is concave, there is room up there to allow for that extra pot that's coming up above the lip. I do this all the time. It works perfectly. So then you could go under pressure, and when you're done, of course, you can just open the lid after you release the pressure, and you've got your 3 layers of cooking here. Now, if you wanted to cover your pans, you can certainly do that as well. You can cover them with foil. Foil's fine to use under pressure or with the tender crisp functions. But one thing that I recently found that I am just, oh my gosh, so excited about are these silicone covers from Walthos. They are also in my Amazon store. They work fantastically, and you will see them in many of my videos. So if I'm going to cover something, I can just cover it just like that. It does create a nice seal. Now, it's not going to hold up your food if you have something in here. Like if you have rice and water in there, it's not going to hold it. But you can see that it does create a nice seal so that water doesn't come in. I find that these actually work better most of the time than foil does. So that's great. They come in 4 sizes. The little one I haven't really found any real use for. I don't have a pan this small, but anyway, it's cute. I'm sure I'll figure something out to do with it. And then another one is this purple one, which I have cut down. The reason why I cut it down is because I wanted to be able to put it on and get it on the rack. And it was a little too big to do that with an 8-inch pan because of the handles. So I'm gonna show you how that works. So if you have your 8-inch pan, or 7-inch pan would be fine, or 6-inch, but if you're gonna use a 6-inch, I use the blue one. And you wanted to cover it, the way it was a little too big, so it would fit, get that on right, it would knock into these handles and it wouldn't create a seal. So I just cut it down to a diameter that will fit and works perfectly. So there you have it, then you can cover and go into your pot for cooking when you want something covered. And there are times that you want something covered. If you're gonna cook chicken in a pan and you don't want a whole lot of extra liquid or the water vapor getting in there, because it will produce more water in your dish if it's uncovered, then these are a great option. All right, so let's get into a few other pans that I have. I'm gonna talk about the baking kit and a few ways that I've figured out how to utilize 2 of the items. The other one is a loaf pan, and that works great. So I'm going to talk about that and also talk about why I prefer to use the Fat Daddy-O pans versus the darker baking pans that come from Ninja Foodi when I'm baking cakes and quick breads and even regular breads. All right, so this is the Ninja Foodi baking kit that comes directly from Ninja, Shark Ninja, or you can also get it on Amazon. In fact, it's been on sale for quite a while on Amazon for $20, which I think is a pretty good deal for these 3 pieces. They are made very well. They are good quality. They're not real thin-walled, so they are going to cook really nicely for certain things. I'm going to get into that in just a minute. So this pan is 9 inches by 3 inches, so it's a nice size. This would be a nice lasagna pan, certainly, absolutely wonderful. You can also use this accessory that comes with it, and forgive me, I don't know the name of it, but it is like a crisper tray, perfect for like an individual pizza, a thin crust pizza. This would work great. It's got little holes in it for air circulation. I think it's meant to go on the rack and be used as something to air fry on. But it also works as like a little steamer lid. Now, it has holes in it, so you wouldn't want to put anything in this pot that you wouldn't want to have any extra moisture get into. But it does work great. You can also use it for pot and pot cooking again. It fits on the rack in the low position, just like that. And then you could also put on a 6-inch pan on top, and they fit into the Ninja Foodi just fine for pressure cooking. Again, the lid won't come down. Now, you could use it without this and do some air crisping, but I'm not sure how much heat you would get underneath into that pan to really cook it. Now, the issue, number one, with darker pans, they heat more efficiently, they cook faster, which sounds wonderful, that's great, right? We want to get things done fast. That's why we have the Ninja Foodi. But there are problems with that. When they cook faster and it's deeper than 2 inches, this is 3 inches, food tends not to get done right in the center all the time. And I'm specifically talking about cakes, any kind of breads, things like that you want to have consistently done throughout the edges and the center. You want it completely done. So what happens if you put a cake in here and you put it in the Ninja Foodi, the edges are gonna get really brown, the bottom's gonna get really brown, the top's gonna get really brown, and your center is going to be undone. There's a couple ways that you can fix that. Number one is decrease your temperature some, cover the top with some foil. That will decrease that direct heat from the tender crisp lid. And then there's one other trick that I haven't experimented a lot with in the Ninja Foodi, but I've done it a lot in the oven and it works great. It's a trick that bakers use. It's not even a trick, really. It's a technique that bakers use all the time when they are baking larger size cakes. So I'm going to show you that in just a second. All right, so when you have a large diameter pan, 8 inches or 9 inches like this one is, and you have a depth of greater than 2 inches, sometimes you have trouble getting your cakes, cornbreads, things like that baked all the way through in the center. So you can use what's called a heating core. And these are used by bakers all the time when they're doing large diameter cakes in the oven. And what they do is they sit on the bottom of the pan and they conduct heat from the bottom up through this little rod here that sticks into your cake and create heat that starts to cook the center of your cake. You can put as many as you want in. I would probably maybe put 2 in a 9-inch pan like that, or you could do 3. Now keep in mind you will have little holes in whatever you're baking, but honestly you don't even see them. They don't go all the way through, so you don't even see them. It's fine. So you would still fill your batter up, and they don't, the batter will rise up above those, and it'll be fine. They work great. Especially if you're going to ice in a cake, they really don't matter. You'll never know. So that is one way that you can get more heat distributed to the center of a large diameter pan. You don't usually have to do that with something that's 6 inches, even 7 inches, but it depends on the cake. It depends on what you're making, what kind of quick bread or what you're baking. This would work for brownies as well if you're having issues getting the center done. So that's a trick. The other thing is you definitely want to take your temperature down on the Ninja Foodi. The rule of thumb is 25 to 50 degrees lower than oven temperature, the oven temperature that's suggested for that recipe. So if you're converting a recipe, you take it down 25 to 50 degrees. I almost always do at least 50 when I'm baking something that's in a large diameter, just because you don't want to blast it with heat and have the edges burn before the center cooks. Or you can use the heating cores, and that works as well. All right, so this crisping tray can also be used on its own on the rack. That's no problem. So you could just put it on the rack, lower it in, and crisp up whatever you're gonna make. So those are 2 of the items that are in the baking kit. This is the 3rd one, and it is a loaf pan. Great for making breads, great for making like quick breads or cornbreads. And I have a delicious recipe for zucchini bread that I will link to right up there. However, if you're using this pan for my zucchini bread, you would have to make some modifications. So certainly get in touch with me, send me an email if you want to bake it in this, and I will let you know how to do that. Because I used a different pan when I developed the recipe for my zucchini bread. And I'll show you that pan in just a minute. All right, so this fits on the rack fine this way, and it'll go right into the Ninja Foodi, so that's great. But it is deeper. So this pan is about 8, maybe 8.25 wide. Long, and about 4.5 wide, and it is 2.75 about in height. So it's a great size. It's a wonderful size, but again, it may cause some issues with breads getting too done around the edges and not in the center. You could certainly use one of the heating cores right in the center for that as well, and that will help. So it's a great product. I do recommend them. I haven't worked with them a lot just because the recipes that I've been developing are around the Fat Daddy-O pans, because I do prefer them. I think that they cook more evenly for you and don't create those dark edges and then an undone center. So I don't use them as much, but they are good quality, so you can't go wrong by getting those. All right, so let me show you the loaf pan that I use. It comes in a set of 2, although I have not figured out exactly how you could make 2 things at once. I think you could possibly do the configuration that we did with the graffiti bands, probably like this and like this, because I would alternate them if you were going to try to do 2 so that you weren't covering up the entire bottom of this one. But if we're baking and roasting, I'm not sure how effective that's going to be anyway, but that would work. At least I'm pretty sure it will work. I'd have to put it all together to make sure. Let me do that. I'll do that. That's the purpose of this video, right? We want to make sure that things work. And since I haven't tested it, I'm going to find the right band to use. And go over the edges. Sorry about that noise. Put it under here. Pull it out. That will lift it up. And put that on, and let's see, because it might not work for baked roast. Actually, no, it won't work for baked roast, so I'm glad I tried that. So if you're using the tender crisp lid, that configuration does not work. But if you were pressure cooking, it might be a little too tall. I think I'd skip that one. So you can only use one of the pans at a time that I found. If you guys figure out a different way to do it, please let me know. Send me an email or leave me a comment below. But anyway, I like the size of them. I think it gives you enough to have a good size loaf of bread, but you don't run into all the issues that you do with a bigger pan with cooking evenly, and the bigger, darker pan especially. So I prefer these over this, but again, that's just my personal preference. You can't go wrong with either one. So the last thing I'm going to talk about in part one of this two-part series on accessories and configuring the Ninja Foodi for pot and pot cooking is my bamboo steamer. This is a double layer steamer basket, and I've used it in a couple recipes. My favorite one being the steam bun recipe, which I will link to right up there. It does a great job with those. And I've also used it in a beef and broccoli recipe. So this is designed specifically for steaming, but you can go under pressure in it. That's no problem. So what it is it's two layers, and they have slats in the bottom. So you can put one layer of food in the bottom, one layer on the top. Now you would want to use foods that will not fall through these cracks, obviously. But there is a trick if you wanted to cook something on the bottom and rice on top, and I'll show that to you in just a minute. Now, unfortunately, it will not fit into the Ninja Foodi, the 6.5 quart with the lid on. But that doesn't create any problems because we can, again, use one of our silicone toppers to top it, and that works out great. If you have the 8 quart, you can fit the entire basket, both levels in, and put the pressure lid on, no problems. So in order to utilize this, a lot of times what I'll do is put something in the bottom that I want to cook, maybe a piece of chicken or something, and then I'll use one of my 6-inch Fat Daddy-O pans to put rice in, and then I will just cover it with either foil or one of these silicone covers and be able to lift it into the Foodi. So what you do, though, to be able to lift it in is you can do one or two things. You can use one of these bands, or you could also use this trivet. So this goes in. You can sit this in, and you kind of have to pull the edges because it's a little bit bigger, but it works fine. Put those edges right in there, and then you can set it in to the Ninja Foodi, and it will work fine. These little tabs here, they won't close, so I just tuck them down inside when I'm going under pressure, and that works perfectly fine. So you can just do that and then put your lid on, and you can do 2 layers of cooking in here. The reason why I like to steam foods in the bamboo versus just straight on the rack is because it's a gentler cook, a gentler heat. So you can, I think, get a better end result than when you just steam directly on the rack. You have a lot of added moisture going into your food when you're steaming directly on the rack, and this gives it a little protection so that your spices don't get diluted, and I just think it just really makes the food taste better, in my opinion. All right, so that wraps up part one of a 2-part series on accessories and pot and pot configurations for the Ninja Foodi. So in part 2, I am going to get into a lot more detail about baking and different options that we have for baking with the Ninja Foodi. I'm going to show a couple of really cute products and pans that will make baking in the Foodi a lot easier for you. Even a square pan that fits, which I thought this was great. I make my fudge in this. So it's pretty awesome to bake in the Foodi, whether you do it under pressure or with the bake roast function. It does work. There are some things you need to know, and I'm definitely going to get into all of that in the second part of this series. So all of these products that you saw in this video can be purchased on Amazon or Pampered Chef, and I will leave the links below in the video description, so you can click on those links and you can easily find these products. My Amazon store is set up in 2 sections, so they're easy to find products. You just click the accessories and you will see all the items that I showed you today.